Welcome to CNBC.com. I'm Frank Holland, anchor of Worldwide Exchange. We're looking at the ETF market today. Net inflows for the year, according to VettaFi, have reached $795 billion. Joining me to discuss investor sentiment for ETFs and also to share a few top picks, I'm joined by Tyler Rosenlicht, Cohen & Steers Senior Vice President and Portfolio Manager. Tyler, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me this morning.
I want to start off just talking about the fact that the ETF market net inflows has reached $795 billion. We're on track for another $1 trillion year. What does that say about investor sentiment when it comes to ETFs?
Yeah, I mean, we think ETFs are really a continual growth part of the market here. I mean, our firm was founded in 1986, and we actually just launched active ETFs in February of this year. And we think it's a great wrapper for investors to get access to great investment strategies. And obviously, there's been a lot of new products launched and designed over the last few years. And we think that investor flows, we think that the wealth distribution channels and so forth are a lot more receptive to ETFs as a vehicle. And not surprised at all that it's a record year. Would expect it to be continued strong growth in AUM over time for the industry overall. Okay.
Going back to this VettaFi data, according to them, the top ETF that saw the top inflows this week, it was the GLD ETF, not surprising with gold hitting all-time highs. The other two, the VXUS, the Vanguard Total International ETF, and also the IWB, a Russell 1000 ETF. What do you think about the fact that investors are moving in these specific areas, gold, international, and also small caps?
Yeah, I mean, none of that's a surprise to me. I think investors are kind of looking for relative value. Obviously, the last couple of years, we've seen exceptionally good returns, particularly in equity and even credit markets here in the US. So I think people are trying to say, hey, what's maybe underperformed? What's going to offer me some diversification? What's going to offer me some portfolio benefits? And so obviously gold's been really strong. We're actually really excited about precious. No surprise that investors are looking at that as a vehicle to increase exposure. And also generally saying, hey, valuations around the world are a little bit more attractive than here in the US. So looking for other markets, other regions, and other options, we think makes a lot of sense, and not really a surprise that we're seeing investors put money there.
Right. All right, Tyler, we're taping this on Thursday. It's going to air later today and also Friday. Of course, you have the big jobs report coming up Friday. A lot of questions about what that job report is going to say, not only about the economy, but potentially signal about Fed rate cuts. With that in mind, can you give us some ETF picks to play this current market?
Yeah, I mean, we actually think the global economy is pretty good, but I think investors are maybe underestimating the risk of an acceleration of inflation. And we worry a little bit that inflation might actually start to go up again. And so for us, it's about making sure you have exposures in your portfolio that can do well in those types of environments. So for us, real assets, I mean, Cohen & Steers, we think about ourselves as being the leader in listed real assets. And one of the ETFs that we recently launched was our Natural Resources Active ETF. That's a sector that we think is under-owned by investors, should generally do really well in inflationary markets. We think active management can add a lot of value. And so for us, trying to find exposure to surprise in inflation to insulate portfolios and potentially see really good returns is a place that investors should be spending a lot more time paying attention to.
It's interesting, Tyler. So let's talk about that a bit more. Give us the ticker again, and what does that ETF hold?
Yeah, so CSNR is the Cohen & Steers Natural Resources Active ETF. For us, it's finding exposure to equities that help participate in the commodity economy. So we invest in things across the energy system, the agriculture system, and the metals and mining system. So across precious, copper producers, energy producers, and so forth. Businesses that we think do really well when the economy is performing pretty strongly, and also do well when inflation is surprising. Very high inflation beta. That means the natural resources industry tends to do well when inflation is surprising. And again, given our macro view that the economy is pretty good and that Fed rate cuts could actually lead to a reacceleration of inflation over time, we think approaches like that are actually really well positioned. Valuation's really, really inexpensive relative to broader equity markets. So you also see some good value there.
Tyler Rosenlicht, great to have you on. Thank you for that pick, and I really appreciate your time and your insight when it comes to ETFs, and thank all of you for watching CNBC.com. I'm Frank Holland, anchor of Worldwide Exchange. Have a great day.